Ever stop to think that maybe your mind works on a frequency only 1% of the population truly gets? Imagine for a moment that all this effort to fit in, to be normal, is actually a sign that you belong to an extraordinary group, an invisible group, holding a capacity for perception and awareness so deep that it often feels isolated in a noisy crowd. What I'm about to reveal in this video isn't common. It's a journey that will stir not just your reason, but that intimate part you don't always know how to explain, a part that yearns for deeper answers. Have you ever felt there's something no one around you perceives, that your thoughts and emotions unfold in a dimension that escapes society's usual logic? If your answer is yes, then stick with me until the end, because I'm going to present clear signs that show you perhaps are one of these rare minds living an intensely different reality. Before we go on, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to become part of this community that understands the power of the deep mind and perception beyond the ordinary. I also want to know in the comments, have you ever felt like your way of thinking just doesn't fit in this world? Tell me about it. The truth is, while many seek meaning and settle for superficial answers, there's a minority living adventurously between worlds, the visible and the invisible, the obvious conscious and the deep unconscious. We're going to explore these territories together. But what makes this minority so different from the majority? Is this difference a burden? Or perhaps a camouflaged gift that, if understood, can reveal a greater purpose? Get ready to discover and to see yourself in a light you may have never seen before. To navigate this journey through the unconscious and unveil the secrets of this rare mind, we'll anchor our understanding in one of the greatest explorers of depth psychology, Carl Gustav Jung. His theories shaped a new way of looking at the human psyche, an approach that goes beyond the limits of the rational mind and touches the core of what we call the soul. Jung taught us that within each of us exists a vast ocean of images, symbols, and emotions that aren't created by us in isolation. They are part of what he called the collective unconscious, a shared reservoir of human experiences, archetypes that resonate in all peoples, in all ages. It's not just about our individuality, but something much bigger, an invisible link that connects all human minds throughout time. He also developed the concept of individuation, the continuous process where we become the most complete and authentic version of ourselves by integrating these deep parts of our psyche, often hidden or repressed. This process isn't easy nor comfortable, but it's the path to accessing this state of advanced consciousness we're exploring now. When Jung talks about introverted intuition, he tells us that some people have an almost supernatural ability to grasp the invisible, those intuitions that don't come from what we see or hear, but from the deep sense the soul picks up, almost like receiving subtle messages from a dimension beyond the physical. This kind of perception is rare, reserved, who knows, for those ready to understand complex realities that most ignore. Have you noticed how Jung believed these archetypes and psychological processes aren't just theories, but real maps that explain human experience and suffering? Today you're going to use these maps to recognize yourself, to make sense of your own journey. It's not something learned in superficial dialogues, in daily routines, but something that calls inward those genuinely willing to explore the depths. We're talking about discovering not just what you think or feel, but who you really are, beyond the ego and labels. Maybe you've felt different for so long that you almost forgot what it's like to be understood. Maybe you live with the uncomfortable feeling of being on a different wavelength than the people around you, a feeling that's both lonely and empowering. If this sounds familiar, don't worry. You're not alone. In fact, many who share this rare sensitivity live like foreigners in their own social environment, without knowing exactly why. Have you ever felt like you think in a language no one else speaks? Or that you see aspects in situations that other people simply don't perceive? This kind of difference isn't a flaw, but a signature that your mind operates in another dimension, deeper, more complex, and precisely because of that, often misunderstood. Perhaps you've reacted to this perception by isolating yourself, disconnecting from groups, avoiding social situations, because they seem too superficial for your way of being. But what if I told you that this difference you try so hard to hide or disguise is in fact your greatest strength? That for a tiny fraction of the population, the 1% slice, this strangeness is a step towards higher consciousness, towards a life purpose that transcends the ordinary. Maybe you feel a constant restlessness, a search for meaning that doesn't involve ready-made answers or magic formulas. Maybe you question everything, values, beliefs, the direction of your own story. And this, though heavy, indicates that something within you goes far beyond what's expected. Have you ever noticed plot twists in your own life or in conversations long before they happened? Felt an intuition so strong it seemed to transcend chance? These aren't mere hunches, but indicators of a perception that operates on subtle planes, tuning into what few achieve. You might ask, am I the only person who feels this? The short answer is no. And for the long answer, stick with me, because in the next few minutes we're going to unfold exactly these signs that validate this unique way of being. Now that you know this rare mind might be much more common than you imagine, among 1% of the population, let's uncover together 8 signs that indicate you might be among them. Pay attention, because each of these traits not only confirms your unique existence, but also points a way for you to take your place in this world with more awareness and power. Sign 1, sharpened intuition, like an invisible radar. You feel an intuitive perception so clear it seems to anticipate events or understand others' emotions even before words are spoken. This intuition isn't just a hunch, but a deep inner sense, an ability to read between the invisible lines of reality. Sign 2, living in a rich and complex inner universe. Unlike most, your mind isn't satisfied with the superficial. You live in constant internal dialogues, an intense flow of thoughts, ideas, and reflections that other people might find tiresome or hazy. This inner richness creates a universe where solutions to many problems begin to form. Sign 3, constant feeling of not belonging. Have you ever felt that, although you're physically present in social settings, your mind operates on another frequency, as if you're seeing the world through a different lens, misunderstood, even when you try to communicate? Sign 4, fascination with mysteries, symbolism, and archetypes. Your attention naturally turns to symbols, myths, and stories that speak of deep and universal meanings. This happens because your consciousness seeks to understand not just what's in front, but what's behind the appearance of things. Sign 5, tendency to question norms and social patterns. You don't accept superficial truths. You need to feel deep down that what you believe is authentic. That's why you often doubt conventional rules and always seek a deeper explanation for any phenomenon. Sign 6, emotional sensitivity that varies between intensity and silence. It's not uncommon for you to experience emotions with a depth that frightens you, but also to retreat into an inner silence that only the wise know, where storms calm. Sign 7, attraction to isolation to recharge energy. While many seek constant interaction to feel alive, you need moments of solitude to reconnect with yourself and tune your mind and spirit. This isolation isn't escape, but a vital necessity. Sign 8, continuous pursuit of individuation and self-transformation. You feel, deep down, that you didn't come into this world just to exist, but to transform, transcend your limits, and leave a mark that aligns with your deepest purpose. These 8 signs aren't pulled out of thin air. They emerge from Jungian psychology, the spirituality of ancient traditions, and the personal experience of millions who, like you, feel they live an uncommon, yet meaningful existence. By recognizing these signs, you begin to bridge the gap between who I think I am and who I really am. Now allow me to ask a question, and answer with an open heart. Have you ever had the feeling of seeing beyond, of grasping the atmosphere of a room in seconds, even when no one said anything, as if you could hear what's behind the words? Perhaps you often ask yourself, why do I perceive things that other people seem to ignore? This perception is no coincidence. It's not an exaggeration. It's a deep part of your cognitive and spiritual ability to read invisible patterns. What goes unnoticed by many for you leaps out like an energetic wave bothering your body and mind. This sensitive and subtle ability is part of the deep consciousness only some people possess, and perhaps you are one of them. Let's try something now. A simple mental test. Close your eyes for a moment, if you can, and think about the last time you walked into any place, a room, a meeting, a restaurant. Do you remember picking up on the vibe of the place without hearing a word? Did you feel a knot in your stomach, a sudden discomfort, or perhaps an inexplicable lightness, even before anything happened? That's refined intuition. It's an energetic reading that doesn't come from physical senses, but from another level of perception. Now reflect. Have you ever ended a social conversation feeling drained, even with no apparent reason? Have you preferred silence to presentations, depth to long, empty speeches? These are typical behaviors of a mind with what's called introverted intuitive function, one of the rarest among mental functioning types, according to cognitive theories derived from Carl Jung. People dominated by this type of cognition think in layers, hidden meanings, symbolisms, and external sensations that are translated internally, as if the unconscious speaks directly to them all the time. And want to know something? This can be exhausting. But it's also a gift. Another test. Do you feel it's possible to intuitively predict people's behavior patterns? Not because you're judging, but because something in you picks up intentions behind their eyes and nuances in their tone of voice? This is a classic example of what Jung called reading the unconscious field. And when you're alone, another phenomenon emerges. Your mind connects with even deeper layers, accessing what many describe as ideas that come from nowhere. Potent ideas, creative visions, philosophical conclusions. But it's not from nowhere, right? It's from your connection to the whole. It's the language of the self, which communicates with you all the time, even in silence. These small tests aren't forms of classification, but of recognition. Because at its core, the journey of consciousness begins like this, with a silent yes. This is exactly what I've always felt, but could never put into words. And now, perhaps, the words begin to take shape. It's time to talk about something deep, something you might never have dared to say out loud. It's exhausting to exist when no one understands what's going on inside you. It's lonely, sometimes suffocating, to live with a mind that questions reality, that picks up on pains others prefer to ignore, that emotionally collapses when hearing a phrase that came out wrong, but for you was an existential punch. Perhaps for years you've tried to adapt, laugh at what you don't find funny, get excited about things that mean nothing to you, just to fit in. But there's something inside you that never let itself be fully molded. A resistance. A silent anchor that ties you to your essence, even if you try to deny it. And perhaps in this attempt you've started to question your own sanity. Am I too dramatic? Do I take everything too seriously? Am I too sensitive for this world? Let me tell you clearly, you are not broken. You are awake. This feeling of inadequacy that's been with you since you were young, no one understands me, I'm weird, I'm too intense, is nothing more than a sign that you're operating on a deeper level of consciousness. This is not ego. It's not privilege. It's a burden. But it's also light. You are not the only one. There's a silent legion spread throughout the world of people who silence their gifts to survive in systems that don't accept depth. Have you ever cried over something no one considered important? Felt guilty for being more heavy emotionally in a conversation? Been accused of negativity just for seeing hidden flaws in situations? Well then, you see what others avoid seeing, you feel what others run from feeling. You're not exaggerating, you're tuning in. And this is where one of the most powerful functions of your existence comes in, transforming pain into guidance. Every internal crisis, when viewed with the eyes of the self, becomes a rite of passage. Every loneliness becomes a temple. Every existential collapse becomes a call to awakening. This world tries to tell you that you should be lighter, happier, more adaptable. But what if your role here isn't that? What if your role is exactly the opposite? To be the one who faces chaos head-on, who descends into the hell of the soul and returns with wisdom in hand. Emotional pain isn't a sign of dysfunction. It's an invitation, a symbol. It's the self saying, wake up, something much bigger is happening here. You are deep because you were born to excavate reality. You suffer because you have consciousness, and consciousness always hurts at first, but little by little it becomes a mission. Try to imagine this. Your mind isn't a platform for logical transport like most. It's more like a psychic satellite dish, picking up subtle waves, encrypted messages, signs only you seem to understand. while the vast majority of people are tuned to the AM frequency, following patterns, watching life like watching a news report. You're on symbolic HD, picking up meanings between words, emotions and gestures, memories that aren't just yours, but of all humanity. You transmit concepts with the same fluidity that radio waves send music into space. Images come before conclusions. Sensations arrive before facts. For you, a simple sunset can evoke an epiphany. A scar can tell an ancient story. A butterfly crossing the wind can be a reminder that everything that dies is reborn. Your language isn't literal, it's symbolic. That's why you connect so naturally with mythologies, fairy tales, poetry, surrealist art, astrology, depth psychology, sad music, and melancholic soundtracks, because these elements are archetypal portals to the collective unconscious. Jung said that archetypes live in us through symbolic patterns. They manifest as dreams, synchronicities, behavioral repetitions. Have you ever had that recurring dream that seemed more like a riddle than a random image? Seen the same symbol or number repeat multiple times in a short space of time? This is archetypal symbolism calling your attention. You see the world as if it were carved in invisible layers. And it is, and often this makes you misunderstood. People want to know where and when. You want to know why and for what. People see events, you see patterns. People live the moment. You observe the entire journey. You don't just listen to stories, you step inside them. You have deep emotional experiences with movies, books, encounters, and goodbyes. For you, every experience carries a metaphor. Perhaps you've been silent for much longer than others would tolerate, not out of shyness, but because you're translating internal symbols into understandable language. And that's not always possible in a hurry. Many understand symbols as something mystical or useless. For you, symbols are subtle languages of the soul. You are a soul translator living in a world that idolizes noise. And even if the world tries to stifle this way of seeing and feeling, know this is your portal, your compass, your gift. You are light, but also shadow. You seek truth, but know it never comes alone. You hate chaos, but strangely flourish in its midst. And no, this isn't contradiction. This is paradox. The rare mind is rarely linear. It's spiral, circular, paradoxical. It navigates dualities because it understands something many will never see, that existence isn't binary, but dancing, alive, fluid. And that true knowledge comes from the conscious meeting of opposites. Carl Jung spoke of this clearly. No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots go down to hell. Perhaps you felt you carry irreconcilable extremes within you, an idealist who dreams of a better world, and at the same time an observer who's tired of humanity, a sensitive soul seeking beauty, and a consciousness that has seen too much ugliness to be deluded, a seeker of meaning, but who also plunges, sometimes, into an existential void. It's strange to walk around as if carrying two worlds inside you. It's confusing to love intensely and at the same time want to isolate yourself from the world. It's hard to explain that you can be gentle, but lethal if necessary. That you advocate peace, but no internal war. But this, exactly this, is the omen of expanded consciousness. The common world rejects contradiction. It needs labels. Are you optimistic or pessimistic, introvert or extrovert, logical or emotional, spiritual or skeptical? But you are all these oars in an infinite dance of ands. You are light and shadow, anger and compassion, silence and eruption, enlightenment and mystery. In fact, the more you mature spiritually, the more you realize that answers don't reside at the extremes. They reside in the space between the margins. And the more you integrate your internal paradoxes, the more whole you become. This is one of the secrets of rare minds. They don't seek to be coherent in a social pattern. They seek to integrate the entire system that pulsates within them. So if you've ever felt contradictory, remember, the deepest soul is always paradoxical. Because only those who live many worlds simultaneously understand what it truly means to be. You've made it this far, and that says a lot, because few have the emotional stomach and intellectual courage to listen to this kind of message to the end. Many would click, listen to the first few seconds and think, this is too much for me. But you stayed, because deep down you already knew, something within me is awake, and I need to understand what that means. So listen closely. The last sign, and perhaps the most important of all, cannot be measured by behavior. It is a feeling. Sign 9, the call of individuation, the beginning of your true journey. Do you feel that behind all your restlessness, behind your pain, your introspection, your acute sensitivity, there is a mission? Not a professional mission, nor a promise of traditional success, but a mission to become who you are, wholly. You know you're not just here to accumulate degrees, make money, follow trends. That might even happen, but that's not the point. You are here to fulfill a cycle of awakening, and this reveals itself when small synchronicities begin to multiply, when the dark night of the soul transforms into learning, when all traumas begin to make sense within an invisible script. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you are." But that takes courage. Courage to cross the desert of doubt. Courage to say, no, that doesn't resonate with my essence. Courage to stop seeking approval from others and seek connection with your own being. Individuation is not a destination. It is a process. A constant unfolding of your soul towards totality. And perhaps this video is serving as a sign, yes, a call. A reminder that ignoring your depth doesn't eliminate the abyss, it only makes it more unbearable. But today, hearing these words, something within you lights up. I am not alone. I am not broken. I am the beginning of something immense. So I ask you, what are you going to do with this awareness? Will you keep it a secret, as something too strange to live? Or will you use it as a lantern to illuminate the next step of your journey? Because the real work begins now. No longer running from who you are, but aligning with what you came here to be, completely. You are part of a small group, but powerful. Rare, but essential. You are one of the few who carries within them the flame of the unconscious, archetypal sensitivity, the strength of introspection, and the gift of translating the invisible. Perhaps you're still at the beginning of your journey. Or perhaps you've already crossed deserts, started your quest years ago. But whatever point you're at, know this. You no longer have to walk alone. This community forming here, through this channel, isn't made of shallow opinions or noisy distractions. It's made of rare souls, awakened souls, souls not afraid to look within. So if these words touched you, if you felt like I was saying things you could never explain, then you've found your place. This channel is a sacred space for minds that see beyond, for hearts that feel too much, for truth seekers, even if it hurts. Subscribe now, not just to receive more content, but to become part of a movement that believes in deep consciousness as a form of individual and collective transformation. Leave your comment. Which sign spoke to you the most? What did you discover about yourself in this video? Like, share. Not for the creator's ego, but because perhaps others, like you, are wandering out there, waiting to find this same message, and you can be the channel for that connection. Remember this. You are not strange. You are symbolic. You are not misplaced. You are designated. You are not just sensitive. You are necessary. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs people like you, who silence, observe, feel, and when they speak, change everything. Therefore, keep going. Your mission begins now. Consciousness is presence. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to access more stories like this. And being here until the end of this video already shows that you are awake enough to change history.